now the delegation. And I will call upon Marsha Rempel, the resident, regarding the expropriation of 349 Ridge Road in Welland. So, Ms. Rempel? Hello.
Good evening.
Let me explain the procedure. You are going to give your presentation, and when you've finished, council will ask you questions. And then a motion to receive your presentation will come forward, and then it will be discussed between the councillors and staff. Okay? So go ahead, Ms. Rempel.
Well, I guess you all well know that it's a heritage site which cannot be replaced. There's all this talk about fair compensation. Well, fair compensation or fair market value is basically what's fair to you, not what's fair to me. Woo! And as far as the jobs, I look across the road and I'm not seeing these jobs. I just called the Athena Donaire people. They are not coming to Ontario. There's lots in the back, whether they're for sale or not, that still equal no jobs. The sign for one of them in the back has been up for going on 3 years. So to a point you have to ask, is it there are no jobs, or is there kind of a definition of the kind of jobs people want to take or think they shouldn't have to take? And I've worked in jobs like that in the past. And to me, it was here nor there whether I was in town or I had to commute. I've worked in places where I was the only Canadian working there. They had to bring in all these other people just because the Canadians did not want to do some of these jobs, but they were still jobs. Now, going on with this brownfield thing, I just found in the paper this thing about Federation of Canada that went in yesterday launching brownfield roadmaps and cleanup to the tune of $1 billion for the government of Canada. So they were talking about $5 million for a brownfield site and the onus being more than they'd want to pay, and yet I'm reading here that there's this $1 billion program founded by the Canadian government that would step in and pay the onus of the brownfield cleanup as an incentive to get those lands reused. So there are options for the brownfield besides leaving, like there are other options that you're not mentioning, and I still don't understand why some of these are being laid waste, like even the GenCorps wasn't mentioned, and there are other ones that weren't mentioned either. It seemed like you were kind of picky about which ones were listed. I would still like to go back to my question in the first interview that I did on the radio. If you keep getting your way with taking all the green lands in this town to the city limits, and you corner yourself to Port Colborne and Niagara Falls, that still leaves the question, what are you going to do when the brownfields are all that's left? Because you are going, if you keep going things with your way, eventually you are going to run out of land. So what are you going to do then? There are other ways this thing can go. I don't understand all this talk about no service road and no water out at Brown Road even, when there's a great big recycling business on the west side of that same road. There must be some kind of, I mean, there's a road there and there's obviously service if there's a business on the opposite side of the road. I don't know that you're looking at all the options. I think you just want to do what's convenient for you.
Here.
And the aspect of food, I mean, food is necessary. The outcry against this whole thing has been huge. I didn't even expect it to go the way it did. I didn't expect this much support behind me, but it's there. And it doesn't matter whether it's the people in this town or the people from other parts of the province.
Woo! Go
They're not interested. They don't want your industrial park. People from government, other parts of government, are saying this is not necessary. People in government jobs that know more about this than I do are saying this is completely uncalled for.
Here, here. Here, here.
I'm looking at even some of the stuff that was in the paper in the summertime and looking at all this talk about servicing land and what it costs. And it's like, why don't you take the money that you want to spend on servicing land and putting in roads and sewers and all of this stuff and put that into environmental cleanup?
Come on.
And as far as the now, the jobs haven't come anyway. When you get your way, the jobs haven't materialized. INEO has been the third company to go in that site in 5 years. You look at the places on even the old Welland Tubes, how many businesses have come and gone from there? And there are other things besides industrial. You're talking about the commercial land behind the Rona plant on the north side of Woodlawn being developed. I mean, jobs are jobs. Why does it have to be industrial? There are other things besides industry. Industry here has been exhausted for a long time. There are other jobs and there have been other towns that have restructured their job markets, that have gone away from being steel companies to, or steel towns to either computer tech or healthcare or some of both. The industry isn't what it used to be anyhow. With automation and robotics, it's not what it used to be. And as far as predicting the thing with the way this pandemic is raging, nobody knows the future of the job market.
Ms. Rempel, would you? I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll try to. If there's no buyers and there's no push for this as far as people at the door, which Mr. DeGazio said, then what is all of this fuss in this hurry? Especially when there is still land, whether you want to admit it or not, across the road, whether it's sold or for sale, that is just sitting there. And it equals no jobs. The jobs that were promised, even when that was taken, have not come to their full maximum capacity. I look at empty buildings and empty lots every day that still equal no jobs. You count cars in the places that are there, you got 10 cars over here, 8 cars over there, maybe 12 cars at the other one. And that's another place where you've got companies like Timbro that went belly up. None of it has been guaranteed or solid. I don't see how it's justifiable taking my property.
Ms. Rempel, would you like council to ask you questions at this point?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So first up is Councillor Kyokyo.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Ms. Rempel. First of all, I want to congratulate you. It takes a lot of courage to come here tonight. Hang on a second. It takes a lot of courage for you to come here tonight, and I appreciate that. And you know, council's received a lot of emails over the last few days, if not weeks, from all types of people. And the article from CBC touched everybody in Canada, and you shone the spotlight on Welland. So I appreciate people like yourself and what you're doing. It takes a lot of courage. And not only that, I even got a call today from Victoria. But I want to ask you a few questions. is it the farming? No, I know you've owned it. It's been a family history for a long time, and it's part of it. And I've had some input from people talking about the farming on it. Is that the major thing, or is it more of the history of your family and how long it's been in your family?
Ms. Rempel?
You mean the significance?
Right, to you, right.
Actually, you could say it's 50-50, that both of them mean a lot to me, that I value the farming part of it. I'm proud of my farming background. I like seeing the field the way it is with crops on it, but the heritage part is equally important to me. The fact that I am 5th generation to live on that property, that I would say that it's equal significance, the farmland and the generational heritage.
Councillor?
Thank you. And do you and from that, do you derive income? Does that property derive income for you in some way?
Ms. Rempel?
Yes, it does. It does, yes.
So through you, Madam Chair. So is that part? Not only do you own the property, but that is your job. That is what you go to do every day to work for, or part of your income.
Yes, that is part of, yes, it is.
It is. So the fact that it may be expropriation, you know, whatever happens here, is the fact that not only it's not your land and your personal and heritage and history, but it's also part of an income. I think I just want to bring that up.
That's correct.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Richard?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. To our presenter, Ms. Campbell. Marsha, are you aware that the approval for this expropriation can range from several months to possibly years? And can you outline the effects that this would have on your life?
Ms. Rempel?
Yes, I'm aware that it would take possibly years for this to happen. Could you repeat the second question?
What would be the effects on your life as a result?
Ms. Rempel?
The expropriation process, or if it's successful?
Well, the whole effect of having to wait for possibly years for this to be finalized. How would that affect your life?
Ms. Rempel?
Probably the same way it is now, feeling like I'm on pins and needles all the time. But in spite of that, determination to fight to keep what's belonged to us, because I feel that it's worth the fight. That some things aren't comfortable to go through, but sometimes even though it's not comfortable to go through, it's still worth the fight, worth the effort, worth waiting for the outcome, or trying to just find an alternative in the meantime. That I would feel far worse to throw in the towel at any stage of the game than to proceed in the direction I've chosen to go.
Thank you for that, and I'm hoping I can call you Marsha.
You may.
Marsha, I believe your family has owned this property for 150 years. So are you able to tell me that your family has paid 150 years of taxes to the City of Welland?
Well, that's not quite so, because it was Crowland for a long time before it was Welland. That until, I'm not even sure, I think around 1970 was when it became part of Welland. So no, it wouldn't have been to Welland the whole time. There would have been a long time where it would have been Crowland that would have been taxes.
Thank you, and I appreciate that correction.
Yes, sir?
Marsha, would you agree that everyone around this table, or possibly even a resident, so to speak, should not be okay with the possibility of their or their family members' property being taken unwillingly?
Should not be okay with it?
Yes.
I would think not. I would think that nobody would want to just say, here you go. Like, I wouldn't expect anybody to be happy with it.
Councillor?
Thank you for that. And my last question. you know, I appreciate it. Most times in our lives, we stand alone for what we believe in. And remarkably, Marsha, you have managed to get the support of a country, which is amazing in itself. Again, as Councillor Chokio mentioned, we're getting emails and actually even home phone calls from provinces from Newfoundland to British Columbia. So I have to say, you know, bravo to you for the fight. I also want to mention that, I guess I'm going to ask one further question. How old is your barn?
The barn was built in 1907, so that would make it 113 years.
Thank you. And I guess I'm just going to thank you for your very heartwarming presentation of today. And I can't even fathom the stress level you are enduring. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I remind councillors that it is getting close to 7 o'clock and we still have another portion of this to receive to discuss the report. So if we can keep the questions short and direct. Councillor Speck.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rempel, you just commented on the barn being 1907, 113 years old. I believe seeing something on either the Cook's Mills page regarding the story of the house, Dr. Taft, and being moved from inside the city of Welland out there to the barn. Can you enlighten us on that?
Well, that house it was built again in the 1800s, also being over 100 years old. It was moved to not the current site, but back then the other side of the barn in 1900 after the fire, because the original house on our property burned. There was a fire at the turn of the century, and so that house was moved out to our farm at the turn of the 20th century to replace the one.
Yeah, I was told that was the home of Dr. Taft, and a central school site was selected, and that house was picked up and moved across the canal, and it was moved on your property, but that was, as you said, turn of the century, 1900. That house came from inner Welland and went out to Crowland.
Correct.
Awesome, I appreciate that. Another thing about years, 5 generations, 150 years. What year did your descendants first purchase this property?
1859.
Councillor.
And I've been cautioned to keep it short and sweet. I appreciate you coming out and providing us with information. It's a tough thing to do, and I appreciate your efforts.
Thank you. Councillor DeMarco. Councillor DeMarco. Okay, he's not with us right now. So Councillor Green.
Thank you, through your chair, to Ms. Rempel. Appreciate you coming in today. I just have one quick question. So, in your mind, is there any possible compromise with the city of Welland in terms of wanting any of your property? Do you foresee any opportunity to compromise? I think I know the answer, but I would like to hear it.
You want to hear me say no?
Okay, thank you. That was my question. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you. Councillor DeMarco, quickly, please.
Mr. Rempel, again, I won't repeat what the other councillors say. This is going to be tough situation for you. Thank you for coming in to council. And as I'm sure you're aware, there's a motion coming to council later in our council meeting. So hopefully you can, follow along with that. Other than that, I'm sorry what you and your family have to go through, and hopefully we can correct this very, very wrong in later tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And thank you, Marsha, for your presentation. I will go to the clerk now for a motion.
The motion is that the General Committee receives for information the presentation by Marsha Rempel, resident, regarding expropriation of 349 Ridge Road.
May I have an approver? Councilor LaRouche? Call the question. All in favor? Approved.